Hello, everyone. Today we're here with Valerie Bergeron, who is a traumatic brain injury survivor. Welcome to the podcast, Valerie. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and share your brain injury story?
Okay, so I don't know how to start it. My brain injury started many years ago. I was a teacher, and I had finished my first week of teaching this particular year,
Yeah.
and I decided to go shopping at St. Vital Center. I had no warning that this was going to happen, but while I was shopping that day, I suddenly felt an explosion in my head. And I went up to the clerk and asked for some help. Well,
Okay.
that was the beginning of a lot of years of recovering from brain injury. I had had an aneurysm. So somewhere in my brain, there was a malformation on a blood vessel, and it chose to bleed then. So when it did bleed, I ended up having to be transported to hospital. And I spent 3.5 weeks in the hospital. But that's not where the story ended, because after 3.5 weeks, I remember a doctor walking into my room and saying, "How'd you like to go home today?" Well, it was the beginning of what I say. It doesn't matter. Like, I would never do anything purposely to people, but nobody can tell me to go to hell, because that was the beginning of my hell.
Yeah.
That day, a blood vessel somewhere in my brain, because of a malformation that was on that blood vessel, bled. So it was an aneurysm. I had an aneurysm. And I didn't know what an aneurysm was. I walked around telling people, "I've had an aneurysm, I've had an aneurysm." But it didn't mean anything until one day somebody said, "Every time I get a headache, I think I'm having a brain hemorrhage like you." I went, "Brain hemorrhage? Yeah, that's what an aneurysm is. It bursts and then it bleeds into the brain." So that's how my story started. I was minding my own business that day. I remember saying goodbye to my husband that morning, and I headed off to go shopping at St. Vital Center. So while I was there, this thing popped and bled. And I don't remember any of that. I remember saying goodbye to my husband that morning. The next thing I remember is a security guard putting me in a wheelchair. And I looked up at him and said, "I'm getting sick." He turns to the clerk and says, "Give me a bag." I got sick. And the next thing I remember is a doctor walking into my room. It's 3.5 weeks later. And he says to me, "How'd you like to go home today?" I have no memory of what happened between the time I got sick and the time that I'm said, "How'd you like to go home today?" Except for one day, I guess I had tea given to me in a hot cup that was insulated, and I burned my tongue. And when I did that, my husband reached to grab this cup away from me, and I see his face clear as day, and then it's gone. And so that doctor walks in, "How'd you like to go home today?" I have no memory of getting dressed. I have no memory of getting home. I remember we had 2 little Cocker Spaniels. I walk in the door, they jump up and down on me,
Yeah.
and that's it. For 6.5 months,
Yeah.
that's all I remember. Except once in a while, if something really scared me or really made me happy, there's a bit of a flash of a memory. But I lived in another world for all those months. It was one of the hardest things that I've ever gone through. And of course, in those 6.5 months, I'm trying to learn and relearn and become the me that I used to be.
Right.
So everything. I sat down, I asked my husband, because people sent get well cards.
Yeah.
And I would go over and over and over these cards. My husband said I would go through these cards so many times that he would get tired of watching me because my short-term memory was so poor. I couldn't remember that I had already read a particular card. So I
Right.
kept reading them over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, then I get home. Those cards became my lifeline. Those cards were the things that, and again, they were new to me every day. But every time I read one of those cards, in my mind, it told me somebody was thinking about me,
Yeah.
somebody cared about me, and somebody wanted me to get better. So I kept struggling to get better
Right.
because getting better meant everything. So I said to my husband, I'd like to get thank you cards for people
Yeah.
that have sent get well cards and flowers and stuff. So he got me some cards.
Yeah.
I sat down to write.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't. I couldn't remember how to write. I couldn't remember how to print.
Oh,
So I got a newspaper.
okay.
Being the teacher that I was,
Yeah.
the word dear, DEAR,
Yeah.
in the newspaper in a headline, I would find a capital D. And then
Okay.
I would practice tracing that letter with my finger.
Okay.
D, then an E, then an A. So for every letter of every word in every thank you card that I was writing, I had to look it up in the newspaper, practice it, and then print it. It took me hours and days to get all those thank you cards done. But
Yeah.
in the process, I taught myself to print again.
Wow.
So then I could print. Then I graduated to writing and I
Right.
taught myself to write again. And I remember as a teacher, thank God I wasn't one of these teachers, but there's people that will say to a child, look, you just did it over here. You
Yeah.
just did it. Do the same thing.
Right.
I learned that until it is a learned thing,
Yeah.
you can't just do the same thing. So you're always learning and then relearning and then relearning until, oh, there it is. I got it. Now I know how to spell dear and I can make all the letters.
Right.
So that's how I did things. So I learned to print. Then I learned to write again. I had to learn to write. I'm learning everything in the house. I had to learn to cook again. My husband was my subject in my many experiments because cooking didn't come easy. And when he sat down for the spaghetti dinner that was probably the fifth or the sixth dinner in a row,
Yeah.
he looked at this plate of spaghetti and he goes, deep breath. He goes, oh, this is great. But do you think
Aw.
tomorrow we could have something like pork chops? and then and then I would go to the store because he trusted me to go and do groceries
Yeah.
and buy more spaghetti because, well, I need more spaghetti to make spaghetti.
Yeah.
It was just so many things that you had to redo and redo and redo and relearn. It
Yeah.
was very difficult, but I did it. And it took 6 months before I could remember what I did yesterday. So
Okay.
every day I had to get up. I had to find the list that I made.
Right.
So to know on Monday, I do wash these clothes. On Tuesday, I do this vacuuming. On Wednesday, I had to do that. Otherwise, I would just do the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So my husband would go, I had a pile of clothes that was higher than the dress, not the dresser, the clothes basket. It
Yeah.
was out of the clothes basket. And I got to do that laundry today.
Yeah.
But I would leave the bedroom and go
Mhm.
into the kitchen and I would forget about that laundry.
Right.
So only when I would go to bed at night did I see that pile of laundry again. And, you know, my husband was so patient.
Yeah.
He never said to me, why don't you do the laundry? Like, what's the matter with you?
Yeah.
No, he just kept encouraging me and helping me along the way. So I did that stuff. I learned everything all over again. And I also had to learn to be me again.
Yeah.
And that sounds funny, but being me means being able to look in the mirror and say, I like you. I like who you are. Because I had no idea who I was, and I had no idea what kinds of things I could do. I found a letter because that first aneurysm happened at the end of my first week of school.
Okay.
And at the school that we were at, we would do after the first week or whatever, we used to have a presentation that we would do with parents,
Okay.
an evening with parents, and talk about, like at the time I was teaching kindergarten. So I would talk about my philosophy of kindergarten, the kinds of things that I did with the children, etc. Well, I have this aneurysm. I'm going through 6 months of hell. And somewhere along the line, I found my little speech, my little plan that I had done with the parents when I had talked to parents. And I read this thing and I went, holy man, I wrote that?
Yeah.
Oh, holy. Like it sounds like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I am back in the throes of relearning everything and being lost all the time, feeling lost all the time. So when I read that, I thought, man, I want to be that girl again.
Yeah.
But I couldn't be that girl again at that time.
Right.
It took 6 months of constantly working. And my school was kind enough to let me, because my doctor wanted me to go back to teaching, to be around children and stuff.
Yeah.
So they let me go back at the school and just do volunteer time in different classrooms
Okay.
and take small groups of children, just
Yeah.
work back at it slowly, slowly, slowly. And
Mhm.
eventually, I do remember the day. Oh, and one of my teacher friends suggested keeping a diary.
Yeah.
Just write things down because it helps your brain to work.
Right.
So at the end of every day, I would write down what I had done that day.
Yeah.
And one day, I sat down to write and I had forgotten to write the day before. And I panicked because I thought, it's gone. I'll never get it back. Yeah, whatever. I was so stressed.
Yeah.
And I sat down, I was quiet, there was nobody around, and I was able to start to remember what I had done yesterday. You have no idea how excited I was that
Mhm.
I could remember.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning for me. And it got better and better. And eventually I was offered my job back
Yeah.
and I was able to go back to teaching. So I was teaching again a
Okay.
couple more years. And the doctors told me, you're so lucky because you're the 1 in 10 that
Mhm.
gets to go on without having to have surgery. This thing had repaired itself
Yeah.
and you're that one. So, I was so excited. So now I fast forward a couple of years. Uh, I'm back teaching. I'm back taking university courses when I want to take them. I'm back doing everything, everything, everything.
Yeah.
And then I found out that I was pregnant, which was so
Yeah.
exciting. My husband and I were thrilled that we were going to have a baby.
Yeah.
And I had a very bouncy kindergarten class that particular year. And I
Okay.
told my principal, that I'd really like to take the second half of the year off and let a new teacher start, like quit Christmas and let the new teacher start in January.
Okay.
So that's what we did. And so now I'm 6.5 months pregnant.
Yeah.
I started my maternity leave
Yeah.
and I figured I'm not going to waste this time. It was January. The baby's only due in April.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do all my spring cleaning early.
Okay.
I did my spring cleaning and that night sat down to watch TV. And while I was watching TV, I compared it to somebody sneaking up behind you with a baseball bat and swinging at you, hitting you in the head as hard as they can. So I'm watching TV and I just went, oh, this thing exploded in my head.
Oh no.
And I got up. My husband was having a bath. I went and said to him, please, can you take me to the hospital?
Yeah.
Well, he got me there in record time.
Mhm.
And it turned out that I had had another aneurysm. So the first time they did it, they went back and looked at the pictures again. They missed it.
Oh,
They missed this malformation of blood vessels that was there. So when they showed me the second pictures, compared them to the first,
yeah.
it was not a good set of pictures. The second one showed it clear as day. So now I'm 6.5 months pregnant. We got to get through this pregnancy, and then we have to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So I was under what I call like a house arrest. I had to have somebody with me at all times. I
Yeah.
wasn't allowed to drive. I wasn't allowed to go up and down stairs. I wasn't allowed to get angry. I wasn't, nothing that could make your blood pressure go up. And then once we reach the point where I can feel that I'm going into labor.
Yeah.
I could feel contractions starting. They said, don't wait until, usually they say, wait till your contractions are so many minutes apart. No, they said, as soon as you feel it, come in. So I could feel them. We went in, they gave me an epidural, and my husband was allowed to come in and witness our daughter being born with forceps only. They didn't even want to do a cesarean because they said that the recovery time for cesarean is longer.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. And we had a little baby girl. And then 5 weeks later, they took me in for surgery. When they did the surgery, they did tell me, because of where this thing was, that I could be left paralyzed on one side.
Okay.
And I was prepared. It's hard, but I had to prepare myself for that. And I had to give permission. Yes, it's okay. Go ahead.
Right.
What I wasn't prepared for, and what they didn't tell me, was that because of the surgery, because of the bleed, whatever, I could be left with permanent problems. So I have permanent difficulties with memory.
Yeah.
All these brain injury things they say, brain injury can cause this and this and this. Yep, it does. So I have difficulty organizing. I have difficulty, everything is on lists.
Yeah.
I have difficulty keeping a list because I put it in a safe place and then I can't find it. So all those kinds of things. I have difficulty with anger. Emotions are difficult to control.
Yeah.
And those are all things that we learn. We learn in social circumstances. We learn, we just learn that that you should say things at certain times. You should say it in a certain way. In many ways, I've lost that ability. So if something scares me, it blurts out. If something makes me really angry, it can blurt out. And I feel bad because that's not me. But that's the brain injury. And that's the part that a lot of people working with brain injured people don't understand.
Yeah.
See, if I was in a wheelchair, if I had crutches, if I walked with a cane, they would say, oh, you know what? She's got a brain injury. Just relax. Don't worry about it.
Right.
But because I walk and I talk and I don't look like there's anything wrong, people misinterpret some things that happen.
Right.
And I know I'm not the only one that happens to. I've seen it happen to other members of our Brain Injury Association.
Yeah.
Where what they're saying or what they're doing, and because of their brain injury, because they blurt things out, because they get angry fast, because because they become even they can even become over affectionate, for heaven's sakes. It can be misinterpreted. And that's difficult.
Yeah. So that was very inspiring, and thank you so much for sharing, Valerie. So, Valerie, you shared how your brain injury did affect your life. Is there any way that the pandemic made coping with the brain injury more difficult or easier, in your opinion?
It's made it more difficult in some ways.
Yeah.
Again, because we're living now in a society that, like, we have to be so careful. We have new rules.
Yeah.
So like going into a grocery store. You can only go one way down the aisles. You can only do whatever.
Yeah.
It, those kinds of things are more difficult. And also, like remembering for me,
Yeah.
oh, you can't just go to your children's house, or you can't just show up where I forget those things.
Yeah.
That the pandemic has rules, and we have to abide by those rules for everybody's safety. So
Right.
in that way, it's been more difficult for me. But I'm lucky, again, that I have people that surround me that are quick to remind me, but not remind me in an angry way.
Yeah.
Some people get frustrated that they have to repeat and repeat again.
Right.
And I know, like, it's not just me, it's people with brain injuries that, you get in a group and you're going to take a turn and you're going to do this, and then people blurt things out, it's the brain injury that's
Yeah.
doing that. You don't remember that those are the rules that have been set down.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's, for me, the biggest thing is all the rules that we have to go by.
Yeah.
And I do feel anxious and isolated
Yeah.
because of that, because um, I'm just, I don't get to see people in the same way and as often as I'd like to.
Right.
And then um, in some ways, it's been good. My husband has been home, but then he's home 24 hours a day. And so am I home 24 hours a day. So
Right.
it's like a new reality.
Yeah.
Oh, this is
True.
what retirement is like. So
Yeah.
it's different. And you can't go out. And then my husband would say to me, well, why are you going to the store again? You shouldn't be going to the store as so often. You shouldn't be. Okay. I don't know. But,
Yeah.
for brain injury, you go to
Mhm.
the store, you get things, and then you forget things. So then you go back again. And then, well, that's the point. That's a problem. My forgetting and going back again. But I'm getting better. I'm getting better at it.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you shared a little bit about how brain injuries are kind of like an invisible injury. For example, you're not on a wheelchair, people don't see it, so they don't really know or um, treat you like it's there. So, just to elaborate a little bit on that, do you feel like brain injuries are overlooked or stigmatized in our society?
I'm not going to say overlooked,
Okay.
but I am going to say that they're downplayed.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had people say to me, I think I know what it's like for you, because I like I'm getting older and I'm starting to forget things. I think I understand what it's like for you. And
Mm-hmm.
when somebody says that, I go, yep. And then in my head, I'm going, you have an idea of what
Mm-hmm.
it's like.
Right.
Because for me, I wake up every single morning, and I have to figure out, is this a weekday or is this a weekend? And what
Yeah.
day is it? And what am I supposed to be doing today?
Right.
And it's taken me a lot of years to be comfortable with that,
Yeah.
because for the longest time, it frustrated me that I had no idea
Mm-hmm.
where I was or what I'm supposed to be doing. I many years ago, I started writing things down on calendars, keeping lists.
Yeah.
I have my husband, when I had to get a new cell phone, my husband suggested getting a phone that I could write things in and put reminders in.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Does that ever change your life? It's so helpful
Yeah.
to have some buzzer go off, and then you look down. Oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
So, like, for example, even today, like, I had a reminder on my phone that we were going to do this meeting. I had a
Right.
reminder written on the calendar that I was going to do this,
Yeah.
just to keep it so that I know where I'm going and what I'm doing.
That's great. You learned a little bit about how to manage it, but yeah, definitely the phone reminders and the calendars.
Yeah, yeah,
That's great. That's helpful.
yeah.
Would you like to share your proudest post-injury achievement?
Hmm. There's been a lot, but one of the things that that I was proudest of was my brain injury took away my job.
Yeah.
I could no longer be a classroom teacher. I couldn't manage a classroom. I couldn't do that work anymore.
Yeah.
But I started volunteering at our church, teaching a Sunday school class.
Okay.
And that class involved 1 hour of teaching once a week. And
Okay.
I would plan my class and I would do it. When I took this on, I agreed to do it, but I explained to everybody, like, like the lady that was in charge. And then I was doing a grade 1 class. And
Yeah.
then I went to a grade 3 class after. But we always had in those grades a helper. So
Okay.
there were 2 people teaching the class. And I would always explain to the helper. And I did end up with some people that we ended up teaching together for a few years. So I didn't have to do it every year. But I would explain to them, I have this brain injury. So sometimes when I'm talking, I can be going on a discussion with the children, and all of a sudden in my head, it's like it shuts off. And I
Yeah.
don't remember what we're talking about. I don't remember where we were going with this line of questioning.
Yeah.
And I said, if that happens, pay attention and you keep the conversation going. And
Okay.
then I'll jump back in when I can jump in. And that's the way we did it. We tag teamed for the longest time. And
Okay.
I also did grade 1 and then I did grade 3. And I said I wouldn't go any higher because in those grades, you can still do a roll call every single week.
Right.
I made the roll call, tried to make it fun. So I'd say, like, when I call your name, tell me what you did on the weekend. When I call your name, tell me your favorite color. When I call your name, tell me what you wore for your Halloween costume.
Yeah.
I did a roll call that way, tried to keep it a little bit interesting, but then I could learn, okay, that's that child's name, that's that child's name, that's that child's name. And I could use names for the evening.
Mm-hmm.
And if I couldn't remember their names, because that happened, I
Yeah.
could say, listen, you little characters, come here, you little stinker. And in grade 1 and in grade 3, they don't realize that you can't remember their name. And they
Yeah.
don't mind you saying stuff like that. If I
Yeah.
was in grade 6, no, you can't do that. That's why I stayed in the lower grades so
Yeah.
that we could all just relax for the evening.
Wow, that's amazing. And you sound like an amazing teacher too.
We had so much fun. I mean, I miss it, but
Yeah.
I did it for 30 years. I
Wow,
taught
that's
the
amazing.
religion class for 30 years. And then I thought, my husband's getting to an age where he might want to do some traveling. And if we travel,
Yeah.
I don't want to have to say, can you get a substitute for me for a catechism class? I mean, so I
Yeah.
thought, you know what, it's time to move on and do some other things. And
Yeah.
I said, if you ever need a substitute, I'll substitute for you. And then the pandemic hit and we're not having any kind of classes. So
Right.
uh,
Um, that's awesome. And what would you like other people to know about brain injury survivors?
I would like them to know that sometimes the person that you're looking at, the person that you're hearing, is not the real person. That sounds funny, but sometimes you have a person with a brain injury that's having a really, really bad day,
Yeah.
a really, really bad week.
Mhm.
And what they say and what they do comes out in a way that you look at them and you go like, what's the real problem?
Yeah.
Like, why can't you control this? Why are you getting so upset about everything?
Yeah.
In all those researches, they'll say, a sign of a brain injury, you can have this, you can have this, you can have trouble controlling anger, you can have trouble uh, um, keeping things in order, organizing. Yeah, this is what we live with.
Yeah.
I've said this many times. I've said, there's times when I would like to walk in,
Mhm.
give a talk, and I'll come in and I'm going to have a cane or come in on crutches. And
Mhm.
everybody in that audience is going to go, oh, there she is. She's got it. The brain injured lady is here. Oh, that poor thing. Look at her.
Yeah.
Because I got the crutch. I got
Right.
the cane. But
Mhm.
when you walk in and you look like everybody else,
Yeah.
oh, wow. You're kidding me. I've had people that say, I think I know what it's like for you. You know, I'm getting older now. I'm having trouble remembering things. I'm having trouble. Da, da, da. And I say, yep, you have an inkling. You have
Mhm.
an inkling of what it's like to have a brain injury.
Yeah.
Brain injury, you wake up in the morning and you're already confused. You're already trying to figure out what day of the week it is. You're
Yeah.
already trying to figure out, like, well, what am I supposed to be doing today?
Right.
And then your day starts.
Mhm.
And then you have things that happen. Some things are planned, some things are unplanned. Oh my God. You deal with it and you deal with it as best you can.
Yeah.
I have days that I take my little plans and I take my schedule for the week
Mhm.
and I don't follow it because
Mhm.
I figure that everybody gets a holiday once in a while. So just let the day happen. And that's what
Mhm.
I do. I don't organize it and I don't follow a plan. I just let it happen.
That's some good self-care
Yeah.
every now and then.
Yeah, that's what I have to do.
Yeah, thank you so much, Valerie, for joining us and sharing your inspiring story today. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for asking. And every single person, every single person in our association with a brain injury has a story. And some of them, they don't let you know all the things that have happened to them. There have been many things that happen to a brain injured person that really hurts them. And there are
Mhm.
some things that happen to them that really make them happy, really make them happy. And they don't always share it.
Right.
But in that way, we are like everybody else.
Yeah,
We just deal with it in different ways, and we certainly express it in many different ways.
right. Thank you so much, Valerie.
And thank you. Thank you for asking me to do this.